This week on the TT Show, we review Samsung's latest 8K TV and our ultimate home entertainment server. There is Intel controversy surrounding flagship 13th and 14th gen CPUs, updates on console sales, gaming revenue is in a decline, the next gen Radeon to feature brand new ray tracing hardware, Apple confirms closing apps doesn't save battery life, PS5 Pro expected to fix critical issues, the world's first flame-throwing robot dog, and much more. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the TT Show. My name is Jack Connor. I'm a hardware editor over at Tweaktown, and today I'm joined by my co-host,
Kosta Andriadis, gaming hardware editor at Tweaktown.
Hello, hello. How are you?
Hello, pretty good, yeah. Just back from Sydney after spending a whole day reviewing Samsung's latest flagship TV.
Talk to me about it.
This is what
you had how long over there?
I was basically one evening and a full day.
That's a decent amount of time.
Yeah, so obviously sent there. Samsung obviously paid for everything, which is disclosed that upfront. But they set it up in a pretty swanky hotel, the Ovolo in Woolloomooloo. It's like a tongue twister. but it's right there in the city, and it's pretty like modern, funky, and yeah. So they had the Samsung QN900D Neo QLED 8K TV. So it's the new flagship. 85 inches is the max on it, and so Samsung's flagship isn't OLED like LG which is probably their main competitor. Even though Samsung is offering OLED displays, their flagship is still their QLED, and they've taken this technology to a pretty impressive space. So the 8K, the big thing with this one is, everybody is all in on AI now. So one of the biggest things is that it's got a AI processor on it, and we saw it at the launch event, which we discussed, which was, the AI can upscale to 8K. And it's also generative AI neural network based, so it's been trained on like sport, so it can track ball movement, and can make sure that that's crisp and clear, and grass detail. It knows how to upscale grass detail and things like that, and that extends to movies as well. So sport isn't my main reason for getting a TV, right?
Yeah,
like maybe.
Same here.
Yeah, exactly right. Maybe I'll watch some of the Olympics or the World Cup. Like something like a spectacle.
Yeah, the figure skating or something.
Gymnastics.
Yeah. What size TV were you sitting with? Did you get the 85 inch?
The 85 inch flagship.
Nice. Because it goes down to what size?
It basically starts at 65. So this is like the flagship one, and they had it paired with like their flagship soundbar, which is actually fairly decent, but like when you get to like the top of the line soundbar, right? Like it's like the soundbar was designed to be a compact thing where people that don't want multiple speakers or don't really care about multiple speakers, TVs became super thin, so they couldn't put chunky speakers on them. Like, back in the 90s, like before flat, thin, super thin TVs, they put like, TV speakers were okay.
I had a couple.
Yeah, so basically like a soundbar was taking those and just putting that in a little bar in front of the TV. But like Samsung had their new flagship soundbar there, and it's impressive because it is a chunky soundbar, Dolby Atmos, with the soundbar itself is pretty thick and sturdy, and it's got like 8 discrete speakers and whatever. But then you got a dedicated woofer, and then you got dedicated rear speakers. So like you've already now, it's basically a full surround sound setup really. Like it's not just it's not just a sound bar anymore. But that was fair enough. But the sound stuff was cool. Like I'm not going to specifically review that. I wasn't there to review the sound. But I was pleasantly surprised by the quality of it, because it actually ties into the TV. So like the TV weirdly has like speakers on the back. Like it actually has like 8.2 or something, like Dolby Atmos or whatever, but it's not great, right? Like it's still, because it's, it's a thin TV.
Yeah. It's very
But what
thin.
actually happens is that when you pair it with like the surround system, it actually can use the TV speakers for height for like Dolby Atmos, and it actually uses the AI as well for that. And they explained it beforehand, but then when I was watching movies, like I picked up on it straight away. So basically, what happens is it's almost like the way like an amp works, where like whenever you send like it notices if you got a subwoofer, like anything below this frequency you send to the sub, right? For it's just like a low end frequency, the way that surround works. And the way this works is basically it can detect faces on the screen, and when they're talking or when there's sounds directional, where it can detect that there's supposedly sound there, it would then use one of the TV speakers to basically do some of the sound, like, like the high frequencies of the voice, but then the sound bar will carry like all the mid-range and low-end detail of the voice, so it still
Was that
sounds...
distracting in movies? I can imagine that would have been...
No, it's kind of immersive.
At first, or is it something that you... Because I remember when we were talking about this, you explained that... actually, it might have been on the side of the road after the Samsung event. You were explaining that piece of technology that was in one of the speakers that does this, like this. I can't remember what it was called. Yeah,
that was for volume control, for like to make sure like the voice and thing. Yeah, so this has that built in as well. Yeah, yeah. It actually has like a cool mode. Like, to be honest, like if you're going to be buying this flagship TV, right? Like if you're interested in this 8K TV, which I'll get to in 1 minute in terms of how it works, right?
Go, Ben, go.
But their flagship soundbar is worth pairing with it, because it actually has all these cool features that make use of Samsung's AI. And so basically it uses the AI stuff so you can, it can like detect when there's explosions and then keep that down, make sure that voice is always clear and prominent, not like, I wouldn't say loud, but you know what I mean? So like, when you're watching something and it's like you turn it up because people are talking and you can't hear them, and then music kicks in or something like that, you're like, oh, like it cuts to like a nightclub and you're like, holy shit, turn that down. You know what I mean? So like it has AI to balance all that, which is great, because like I think we were talking about, like there's a chip that actually does that for like amplifiers, for like, we're talking about like home theater setups where you got an amp and 7 speakers and cables and like
you've gone all out.
You're going all out with your home theater, right? And that's what that chip does, and it's magic, right? Because it keeps everything so you don't get blasted.
You said it was like a built-in
sound.
Equalizer.
Yeah. It looks ahead and it equalizes, and you can change the levels of it, but basically make sure that everything is in check. And if there's going to be like a loud explosion, that it's not over the top.
Yeah,
and it
it's
actually
corrected
makes
ahead of
movie
time.
sound better. To be honest, like your movies sound better with it on than off.
Wow.
Yeah, so this has that, and this one actually has like a mode where like a late night mode. Let's say you're gaming, and so basically you switch it to that like late night mode, and what happens is that it turns off the sub, and it lowers all the volume out of the sound bar, and then it just keeps like the rear speakers. It directs most of the audio through the rear speakers, so it's almost like it uses the rear speakers as like headphones. So if you don't want to, if you're going to play games late at night or watch something and you don't want to disturb the other rooms, it's actually like features like that add a lot of value.
Yeah, but, especially when you're spending this much money as well.
So like when they were saying like this TV had speakers in it, I'm like, why are you bothering putting speakers in like an 85-inch 8K TV? If anybody's going to buy this thing, right, if they don't have a sound bar, then they're going to get one, or they can afford one, or
they already have a home studio.
They're already like, if they're just going to have the TV and no sound bar, then they're kind of like wasting their money, because it's picture and you watch a movie or you watch TV, it's visuals and audio. It's two parts of the equation. You want to have good sound, you want to have good picture, and then that's the way that they described it, was that like, well, if you pair it with our sound bar, what we can do is like, it's called Samsung Symphony or AI Symphony or something like that. That's the name of the audio mode. So basically, and I was watching movies. I was put on Top Gun Maverick. That
would have been nice.
Some of Oppenheimer, some of a few more Nolan movies, couple of Planet of the Apes, some old movies like Ghostbusters on Blu-ray, just to see what the grainy movie, because that's a very grainy transfer. Yeah. So we'll see what that looks like with the upscaling and stuff like that. tried to like mix and match with so many things, but essentially what happens is that it actually, you can tell because the screen is massive. You're talking 85 inches. So when you have that sound mode and there's like a face up here, you get that directional audio. Because high frequencies are purely directional. Like, low end frequencies and mid range frequencies, they kind of like spread out throughout a room. And whereas high end frequencies like tweeters and, like when you the ideal listening space is to be like in between where those like where the high frequencies are being projected. So when they're projected like on parts of the screen, you can sense that that's the direction. And it's not necessarily sounds like, oh, he's talking from up there on the screen. It's coming from that direction. So if somebody's on the left side of the screen and they're speaking to somebody on the right side of the screen, you actually get you get height as well as the just left or right. So it's not just stereo.
Yeah,
it's like a height as well.
Well, it's almost like surround sound.
Yeah, it's kind of like it leans into the Atmos.
But software based.
Yeah, so it's like 8.4 or whatever it is, like it's proper Atmos, discrete channels. So it's not necessarily, and also the AI is what determines like which speakers to send that to, and then to be able to also separate the frequencies, because the whole point isn't not to use the TV speakers, because the TV speakers are good, but they're just like tiny and they don't have a lot of depth of sound. So it's to use them for the direction and then use the soundbar to create the depth.
Did you go on free to air TV at all? Because I remember we were talking about on the podcast and at the event, we were interested in seeing what, let's just say, a footy match or just your average 9 News channel looks like, which is a 720p feed, so scaled up to 8K.
So basically, like the worst case real world scenario happened when I was reviewing the TV was basically like the internet connection kind of went spotty, right? So Netflix stream went from, it was actually, no, Netflix seemed okay, but like Disney Plus went to 720p. You could tell that it just went to like a lower resolution. And I don't know, it was like raining at that point, but it was like, for like it was just like a couple of hours where it just seemed like the streaming was struggling. Which, and at that point, basically, you could just tell that going from a lower resolution image to a higher resolution image, like it can't really keep up. So the 8K screen itself is great because it's the amount of pixels is impressive, and when you're upscaling from 4K to 8K, it actually adds detail in a lot of cases, especially when there is like a medium or close-up shot, or where there's like facial detail. You get quite a lot of the sharpness. It's not like sharpness in the traditional sense, like TVs, when you turn up sharpness, it's just a fake sharpness, digital sharpness, which just looks bad.
Yeah, garbage.
Yeah, this is proper like DLSS type of like additional detail, right?
And you don't notice this on wider shots where it's more of it's really only close-ups of like say people, objects.
The detail has to be like, it needs to be like, it can't make up from nothing, right? So in the wider shots, what happens is that you get the other image, but like the best way to describe it is that, like, let's say you're standing less than a meter from the TV, like 50 centimeters or whatever, like not many inches or however many that is in that system. But when it's like a medium or close shot, like, and even if you're right up to the TV, like standing right in front of it, it is sharp and clear. Now, a 4K TV at that size, if you were that close, you would begin to see the pixel breakdown, or you'll see some sort of like just smoothness,
backlight or something,
or just look a bit like, like a bit like blurry in a way, like, where it's just not as sharp when you're that close. It's just the way it works. But like 8K at that size, the amount of the pixel density is so good that if the detail's there and it's fully working, when you're close, it looks pristine and sharp. And that was super impressive. And it managed to actually do that pretty well for 1080p Blu-rays. So the Dark Knight was the Blu-ray version, but the Blu-ray version has the opening heist sequence, which is an all-time opening for a film in terms of how
definitely.
it's shot and how it's presented. And, you know, it's shot on the IMAX 65mm cameras. So even on the Blu-ray, which is 1080p, it is like a great. That's one of the best.
It looks fantastic.
It's one of the best Blu-rays. You know, even though that's not 4K, it's 1080p. So running that on the 8K display was really impressive because it managed to maintain a lot of what made the Blu-ray so good. So it didn't. It wasn't a case of like going to that and going like, oh, doesn't look anywhere as good as 4K content, right? It actually looked really, really good, especially the close-up shots and stuff like that. It was just like impressive how good it looked. But then you go over to Disney Plus, and like I said, I was having streaming troubles, and I was like just streaming like a Star Wars movie, which was supposedly in 4K, but I could tell it just went to like the lowest quality stream.
Oh no!
And then you've got artifacts, right? It's like, you know, like a low quality YouTube rip, blown up to that size. You basically, it's a case of the further away you get, the better. It's more. You can go, okay, I can tolerate that, but like if you're it's just a mess because like the AI doesn't know what to do with super low res.
So what normal TV? Did you put any kind of sport on at all?
Yeah, I tried. There was a couple of things. Ones that were like HD, then ones that were like standard def, I think.
What did standard definition look like?
The standard def looks like AI upscaling. I don't know if you've seen. Weird? Have you seen like an AI upscale of like a standard def video into like 4K?
No, I haven't.
Basically, what it does is it almost looks. It kind of like smooths it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like everything just looks like colors blend, almost like a rotoscoping cartoon effect.
So you actually lose detail.
Well, you don't.
Well, sharpness.
You don't really gain. You don't gain a lot of detail because there isn't that detail in the original image. But it doesn't basically instead of being like a pixelated mess, it just smooths it all out and keeps it. And like it actually manages to know where the ball is still, which is impressive. But I'm not going to say that looks great, right? I'm not going to say you can take a 360p or 480p stream or you know, like a normal TV broadcast that's sub 720p or whatever, and it's going to look amazing. That's not the case. Like it's when we're not at that. I mean, if it managed to do that, then it's doing things that, you know, you've never seen before, right?
Yeah. Well,
but the main thing is that Samsung are 100% aware that they sell 8K TVs and that people at pretty much it's almost 100% of the people that have them aren't watching native 8K content on them. Like they know that, right? Because Netflix streams in 4K, YouTube streams up to 4K, Blu-rays are available up to 4K.
Is this a gimmick overall?
Not necessarily, because you can natively run gaming in 8K. Like if you were to connect like a 4090 rig to that, you could use DLSS to reconstruct an 8K image.
Yeah, I suppose. But I mean, for like the wider consumer base, like I suppose not the everyday person isn't purchasing this TV as well. Yeah. But
I think native, it does really well for native 4K content. Like it actually makes 4K content look really, really good.
So there is a sweet spot for it. Is if you like, let's say you were, I don't know, some kind of cinephile, like you're a movie guy, and you have a Blu-ray collection and you collect 4K Blu-rays. Maybe this TV is the next cinema TV that you get.
Yeah,
but like if you're a sporting guy, like you're watching sports, and you don't have a wicked internet connection and some kind of package where you get dedicated 4K content streamed to your TV.
Yeah.
I think you're going to suffer a bit.
If you've got full high def sports happening, then it's going to look great.
Yeah. But if you're watching free to air stuff, or your stream is going from like 1080p or 720p, or you have fluctuating internet, it's going to look crap.
It's basically like the thing is that it actually is pretty good because it's basically it is like the only reason to get this TV is that if you're excited about the AI upscaling, right?
Yeah.
because this
Which
is
only
their
really
first
works at
TV
4K.
with like its latest, whatever I've got here, the NQ8 AI Gen 3 processor, which is basically exponentially more powerful than their previous, because they've been creating 8K TVs for a while now, right? So last year's model or whatever it is doesn't have the neural networks that this one does. It doesn't have generative AI that
This
they've
is
been
Gen
training.
3, right?
Yeah. So Gen 3 it has been trained to upscale, right? So this is basically like a DLSS equivalent. So even if you think of it in gaming terms, right? You've got a 4K monitor. You play a game in DLSS quality and you're like, well, that's better than native, right? It's like as good as native or even better in some cases, because it reconstructs the detail and everything just looks really, really good. Actually, in some cases, looks better, right? Then you go to the balanced mode and you're like, okay, that's not quite as good as native, but it's impressive. You go to DLSS performance mode and you go, that's it's definitely good quality image. It's not as good as native, but it's done really, really well. And then you go lower resolutions or ultra performance mode, and then you go, okay, it's struggling a bit, but it's looking okay. And it's kind of like the same thing. It's like if you run high quality 4K content on this TV, I would say that in some cases it'll look better than running it on a 4K TV, especially at that size.
Natively.
Because like at that size, like at 85 inches, right? This doesn't make sense. Like if you got a 32-inch monitor, right? You're not going to want an 8K 32-inch monitor.
No.
Because the difference you're not going to tell, right? At 85 inches, you can, like, if you're standing relatively close to it, or if you're moving around, you'll be able to tell. You'll be able to say, okay, that looks better than the 4K at that size. And that's just because of the size of it as well. So I'm not 100%.
Do you think it would have the same effect at 65 inch, the smallest?
Probably not. Probably not. Yeah. But it is cool though. I mean,
it's very cool.
It just shows that AI is going to be a huge part. But the thing as well, like Samsung's interface is so slick and smooth. Their UI is really, really, it's so much better than LG's, I'll just say, because I've got the OLED. And it's just like a travesty now. Like, I don't like the design of it. Whereas this is just like, it has everything aggregated. It's like kind of like, I think like Google TV, and this is easily the best. Like, it integrates everything, and it has like a really good dedicated game bar for like the gaming mode. Where it has different image quality settings, and that disables the AI, but you can enable that. And I tried playing around with it, and it doesn't introduce much latency, if at all. So it's not really noticeable. So if you're console gaming, it's not noticeable. Games look really, really good on it. Like,
do they?
Yeah.
What'd you play?
Tried Forza, tried the Prince of Persia side-scrolling game, because that runs at 4K 120. 4K 120 on the Xbox. So smooth, so vibrant, so crisp at 8K when it's
Forza would have looked nice.
Yeah, that looks amazing too. And even tried like Fallout 4, which had just had its next gen update, just to see what that looked like. And that looks pretty. I mean, it's going to look how it looks, but that was still impressive. And yeah, like the gaming side of it is pretty good too. Like for console gaming, just at that sort of like clarity and size and vibrancy. But the other thing as well is that QLED, they've made improvements to it. So this is now, like the color reproduction is incredible. The brightness, the vibrancy of it. The reason why they sticking with mini LED for their flagship is because of them being able to hit the color vibrancy and the brightness, and especially for HDR. This is their first Pantone certified TV, and Pantone certification is usually just for monitors but that's kind of like a thing where if you're making a monitor for professionals, you would get that certification, or a laptop for content creators. You get that certification just so people know that it's
colors
calibrated.
are accurate.
Yeah, that it's accurate and calibrated correctly.
Yeah.
So you've got that
stamp of approval. Yeah,
so you've got that peace of mind. So it's basically almost like a professional 8K monitor in a way, because it can support 4K 240 hertz, I think, or...
Yeah, no, it was 4K 240.
Yeah,
I think it was in game mode.
Yep.
I think.
Yeah. So if you connected like a PC to this thing, it'll be crazy.
That would have been cool.
Yeah.
If you
Like that's
did
the one thing
that.
I didn't really test because I wasn't going to
You got
lug
to travel with a PC.
like a $10,000 PC on a plane, just holding it in my lap.
It's your carry-on. Did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about with this experience with Samsung, or did you want to move on to the next ultimate
Yeah.
home entertainment?
Well, I'll have
story?
a review up that'll go through all of the main features and my experience with it. I think it's great. Like it is a flagship, so it's like it's expensive. Like I would say, like I wouldn't go. I would get the 75 or 85 at a minimum, to get the best experience from it because you've got that you've got like I think it's 4K is 8 million pixels. And
yeah,
this is
8.3, and then 8K is 33 million. I reckon.
33 million, right? And at that size, you just notice it. You're like, okay, this is
That's a lot more globes.
yeah, and like it's like this. You're talking about like a 10 grand plus Australian TV, right?
Yeah, it's an expensive TV.
So like, how is it not going to be from Samsung, who's been working on QLED tech and this tech and its AI tech and its UI for like 10 years now, refining it.
Yep.
So it's like, what chance is it that it's going to be like an absolute miss? It's not like, and they said that the AI stuff is going to be updated and upgraded moving forward as well. So, but right off the bat, yeah, it's impressive. But like your concerns, like if you're wondering, like, can it really turn low resolution content into stunning 8K images? Like if that's what the marketing said, no.
Yeah,
because it's not possible.
Yeah. Well, that's a problem with their marketing because I feel like there's a lot of people that aren't into tech and just have the money. They're sports freaks. They probably have a sports setup. They love watching the horses. They love watching all these things. They want they want to go out and buy the best new TV. They just one big, and they're just going to get it, bring it home, and be like, everything's going to turn into 8K.
You can stream like HD sports, like proper. Like if you've got like a good 1080p.
Of course you can.
You're getting. It is going to like if Samsung considers 1080p low resolution, which it might be compared to 8K, right? Then yeah, it does that. But anything sub 1080p, like you just like I said, it just looks like a rotoscoped or an animation, or like it just looks like a smoothed out. If you've seen like if you upscale, use an AI tool to upscale like a low resolution image to like massive, like it just it doesn't. It tries to create some detail, but it can't really. Like the thing is, like
it doesn't have anything to get it from.
A good segue to the media server is that like I've tried like upscaling like movies that you can't get in HD, like DVD or whatever, or low resolution, to try and get them to like 1080p or 4K, and like you can it improves it slightly, but it doesn't like it just, if the detail's not there, it just smooths it out. It just makes it look a little bit blurry or a little bit cartoony or fake.
Well, let's talk about the Ultimate Home Entertainment Server. So you posted this story on Tweaktown on April 25th.
Yeah, but this is a project that's been going for months.
I was going to ask you that. How long have you been working on this, and why did you do this? You just felt like you wanted to make the craziest home entertainment server possible,
right? So
just for fun.
If you've had a NAS before, then you know that it's great for like storing files, whatever. But then it's great for like media, right? If you've ever had like a media server, which is like you have digital collections of movies and stuff like that, then like a NAS is a really good setup. So the reason is that basically it's just like Tweaktown, really. So being at Tweaktown, I even mentioned earlier ago, being at Tweaktown means you've got the privilege of having access to people that know about so many things, but also then to connections and stuff like that. So I moved last year, second half of last year, and I had a NAS which had like the old drives, and it was a relatively old one, like and I'm like, well, what if I set up a new one? But what if I set up a new one and then try and make it like a game server, as well as a movie server, as well as a music server, and just basically have a lot of media on it up to a point. And but also as well, like, is it even possible to do that with SSDs? instead of like the big traditional NAS drives that are
Yeah.
slow to boot up or make noise,
Mm.
or you know what I mean. They're just they're
Loud.
fine, but they're
Yeah.
and so then checking like what's out there. Reached out to a couple of companies like Asus Tor. They've got like a pretty affordable NAS that has a 4 SSD slots in it that just like clip in. And then I reached out to John, who does our SSD reviews at Tweakdown. I said, hey, what would you recommend SSD wise? Is there anything out there like this is what I'm doing? And then he immediately came back with these Viper Gaming PCIe Gen 4 full speed, 7200 megabytes per second read speed, whatever SSDs.
Yeah, I'm looking at them now.
Yeah, he said these are incredible because they got like a layer of like graphene for like
for heat dissipation.
Yeah, and where they sit on the NAS is actually on the top near the vent, so they run.
Oh, beautiful.
Right, so I reached out to Patriot. They were very kind to send me 4 terabyte SSDs.
What?
And Asus Tor were kind enough to send the NAS for this specific feature. And my apologies to them, but it just took me months to actually build an actual proper full library, right? So it's 16 terabytes of network storage.
Damn.
All right. So
Oh my God.
This is why I'm calling it the ultimate home entertainment server.
16 terabytes.
And
tell me you've got full 4K lossless form, like whatever formats for your movies in there. Like you got to be using up like per movie 40 gig.
No. So this is where we get into me building okay. So like you'll see in one of the images, I show you like some of my Blu-rays and old games and stuff like that, because I have a massive physical collection. It's not here. It's like at my parents' place. I've got like I don't know 500-600 DVDs like in storage.
Oh my God.
Like I got Blu-rays and stuff, but I loved if you were to watch a DVD now, you have to like put it in your console basically.
Yeah.
Wait a minute for it to boot up, unskippable menus. Whereas now we're conditioned like Netflix, right? So I want to be able to just go select the movie, bang, done. So with Plex, like it's the easiest thing in the world. Like Plex server, you install it on this NAS drive. It has a native app, and the NAS drive has all, it has a web portal where you can access your basically File Explorer, copy things across, check all the drive health, check capacities, all these great tools, really clean UI, one click to install the app, and then you just open the app and configure it, etc., etc. But so when it came to like the movies, like I ages ago I like backed up like a bunch of like Blu-rays into lossless MKVs, and that's when like I limited to myself to like 1080p because 1080p movies like Blu-rays like good rips look great in a 4K display, right? It's like it's like a trade-off. If I want to watch the 4K version, then I have a 4K collection of movies, and cause I didn't want to like have like 60 gigs a movie. Yeah, because I wanted to have like now it's like sitting in 2,000, like there's like thousands of stuff on on this server now.
Oh my God.
So basically using the X265 codec, which is the latest codec. So like the encoder, like just like X264 or H264, which was all the rage. Like because even like Blu-rays weren't even that. Blu-rays I think was still like some older version, and then you could, if you're using X264 H264, you could get like a 30 gig Blu-ray movie down to like 10 gig, right? Or 12 gig or whatever it is. And it's basically lossless, right? It's you can't tell the difference even if you do like a side by side on your PC or whatever. But X265 is it's longer, like because it's a more advanced codec for encoding. But let's say you've got a 10 gig movie file that's lossless at 1080p, you could get that down to about 5 gig with X265.
Wow,
yeah,
that's
it's impressive.
Great.
Yeah, so like there are movies like Lord of the Rings Extended Edition. No, it's not going to be 5 gig. It gets that down from something like 20 gig down to like 12, right, for each movie. So they're the chunky movies. That,
How do you run this encoder? Like, what program do you use to do that? Is it
I linked it into the
into the story?
Yeah, like I didn't want to like go into the details on how to rip because I don't know. This is a gray area of like backing up your own collection.
Yeah.
So there's something called it's an app called VidCoder, and basically
VidCoder,
it
okay.
can take like any Blu-ray. So the way you can rip a Blu-ray to like an MKV, you can remux you can grab the video file and make it into like an uncompressed like file for just the movie, right? Because a Blu-ray is full of menus and all these other files in there. And if you just take the straight movie and then obviously like the way to do is like you remove all the other languages that you don't need.
Yeah.
Which take unnecessary space or space that you don't need, right? Like, like a German language file audio track will probably be like 500 meg or something like that. Like you don't need that.
Yeah.
Bang, get rid of that. So you do all that. Then you have this single file and then you just run you run the encoder, which takes hours. And then you have basically quality profiles and things like that. So you can compress the hell out of it like an MP3, right? You can compress it down to less than a gig for a movie, but it's just going to look like a YouTube clip at that point. You can just tell like it's just heavily compressed at that point. So to get it lossless, you have to do like 2-pass as well. So like you could do like if compression like will take 3 hours, but then you want to do 2-pass to make sure that it gets it. So it runs every frame twice to compress it to get, and then compare it to the native, whatever. Then that'll take 6 hours. Like it,
Oh
a
my God,
2-pass
per
takes double
movie.
the length. Yeah. Things take forever. And you just basically, you can queue up like a whole bunch of, the trick is to basically get like, if you got like 10 movies, you get them all into the file and then you get the profile, then you queue it up and then you just leave that PC running for like in a corner on its own for like 4 days just at like, and then you make it like, you turn that 6 hours into like 8 hours by like capping. So you make sure your CPU is not running at like 100% or whatever. So you cap CPU. This is a whole process, right? Like I've done this.
This is a whole thing, dude.
It's a whole thing.
You get lost in this, dude. You just try to watch a movie, bro.
Yeah, but the outcome.
Just try to put a movie on. Like if you were doing all this, and I'm like, I just want to watch Oppenheimer, man. Just put Oppenheimer. I don't care if it's a Netflix stream, and you're like, hold on, let me.
Okay, so to get into the gray areas, that like if I own a movie and then there's somebody else who's actually gone through that process and offers that file for download, then I would go down that route. If you know what I mean? It's like, why would I do it if somebody else has already done it and there's a 5 gig version there?
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But that's
Fair
not
enough.
what the
We'll
article's
leave it at
about.
that.
We'll leave that at that. But then you've got, so then basically like Plex like runs all my music is like I backed up all my CDs and vinyls to like FLAC 24-bit, and that's a process. Like that was like years ago, right? That's all been done. And if I download new music through Bandcamp, I download the FLAC versions. When I buy new music, like I make sure I've got, because I like to have, I don't use Spotify or anything like that.
Oh right, okay.
So in like Plex, you can have your music library there as well. And there's other apps. So like on my PC, I can access my music library through MusicBee, which is like a fully modular player that has like full album art and stuff like that.
Yeah, I use Fubar.
Yeah. So you can. So basically, when it comes, and then there's also games that, which is a gray area for backing up, but you can like you can actually. I installed like a bunch of indie games or like smaller games from Steam on there.
Yeah.
On like a network drive, and that runs pretty well. And then I also like stored retro games on there, and then run like native clients of like Launchbox, and then it's all connecting to the server to then access it. So basically, yeah, I mean, the Plex collection is like is the gold of it. It's magic. And the thing is the SSDs, they're silent, right? So this NAS is on and it's sitting there and you just don't hear it.
Yeah, you don't hear it at all. I remember when I was fiddling around with the NAS.
You don't hear drives spitting up.
Drives. Yeah.
Like,
yeah. When as soon as you click on like a folder, it on the NAS, you can just hear the hear the wheel turning around on the thing, like, whoop, 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 whoop. Like, oh boy.
And this works like flawlessly, right? So there's it's dual gigabit connections to my router, and I'm running the Asus ROG mesh system. It's like pretty good Wi-Fi 6E, great features, great speed. Dual gigabits connected straight to that. So then it's accessible from any device here. But like when I was in Sydney for the Samsung event, like I was showing them like, oh yeah, like I can access my Plex server from here, like showing my movies. I'm like, oh yeah, I can stream it from here, like stream it straight to my phone. So like my upload speeds are decent enough that I can stream to Sydney when I was in a different state. So I can
sick.
access. So it's basically like your own Netflix. So the whole thing about this ultimate home entertainment server is that you become your own Netflix.
Yeah.
And your own, Spotify. Your own Steam in a way. And that's what the project was. And like, it's not for everyone, like, but I just went full into it.
You did. You went balls to the wall, my friend. Plex is nice.
Oh yeah,
Anthony used to have a Plex server, and I used to stream it to my TV at home from the office that we were working in.
Yeah, that's right.
Just access one of his movies and just stream it straight to the TV. And his PC, like, he'd be working, and then his PC would start up.
Yeah.
Because it would be in sleep. And then he's like, are you using Plex? I'm like, I'll just send a video of like The Dark Knight or something on there. And he, like a photo or a video of it playing on the TV. He's like, yeah, you're using the Plex server. The PC just started.
Yeah, that's the magic of it. The good thing about this, because being like SSD, is that like it's silent when it's doing that. And Plex apps is on everything, right? So like every device, like my LG OLED's got the Plex app, so I run that. Xbox has a Plex app. My PC, I just open up a browser window and go plex.tv. And it's like I have my collections there.
Yeah.
My phone's got the Plex app. Even my like Retroid gaming handheld, like which is like an Android based, because it's Android has a Plex app. It's like Plex is like, to be honest, like I think it's like if you're running your own media, but also as well, like I'm not beholden to like when I was at the Samsung event yesterday, Dune is now part 1 is not on Netflix anymore. I wanted to run that in 4K. It's like, okay, when did this happen? It was there a week ago, right? It must have just been removed. So you're beholden. It's like, well, no, I've got it on my collection, so I'll just
true.
You know what I mean, I'm not going to be beholden to who has what to stream, and limited collections as well. Because I got like, I was one stage where I was collecting like Blu-rays of Kurosawa samurai films from like the 50s and 60s and stuff like that. And you can't really find that sort of stuff like unless you buy
that's
it
not going to pop up on Netflix anytime soon.
You know what I'm saying? So like I have like those collections and things like that. Like
let's jump over to another story.
Yep.
Let's go to Apple confirming closing apps doesn't save battery life. Now, I'm going to be
like, how is this like not a thing?
What do you mean not a thing?
Like closing apps doesn't save battery life. You'd assume that it would.
I would assume that it would, and I just want to put out a public apology to all of the old people that I've grilled.
For closing
during my life, telling them at least on iOS that closing your background apps saves you battery. It doesn't. So according to Apple directly and their an Apple official and their own support pages, the only time that you should force close an app is when it stops responding or when it's freezing. And the reason for this is quitting apps seems like the logical thing to do to save battery life, but it isn't, because once you swipe out of an app and it now goes into the background apps, iOS essentially freezes that app. So it doesn't take any resources whatsoever. Literally none. No resources. So that means it's not pulling from the CPU, which isn't pulling from the battery. It's not pulling from any of them. When you close it,
So basically suspends it,
an
right?
instruction
Yeah.
has to run, which is then going to ignite the CPU. Battery gets
Yep.
drained a slightly bit more. So there you go. Apple's system is iOS is so good that even background apps, now there's a caveat to this, apps that are running in the background, like say Spotify when you're playing music and then you just swipe out of the app and it keeps playing in the background, that's obviously still using battery.
Yeah, like apps that have like background capabilities, like, you know, running in the background. Yeah.
Meaning, so I'll just read this real quick. This isn't the case for iOS, as Apple's operating system freezes background apps, suspending any resources they demand to run. Meaning background apps don't impact battery once they aren't being used, unless they have background processes such as GPS tracking or background music playing.
Right.
So
now, devil's
that
advocate
is yeah, go ahead.
Does this mean that like Android is a different story there? Like I would assume so, right?
I don't know. I didn't write
because
anything
you're not an Android
about.
user. Like I always close my background.
I still do it.
It's like like close them. Like I don't want to.
But on Android, isn't there a clear all?
Yeah.
Yeah. On
Close
iOS,
all.
there isn't.
Oh, but I still do it one at a time though. Even if this with the close all button, I like flicking them to close it. I don't want a button. It's more satisfying than pressing like just like a single button. It's
I don't know. It's a good question. I would like to find that out, because if iOS and Android are similar in this fashion, then people are using unnecessary battery closing all of their apps, which is a terrible habit.
Yeah. So you go like actually using more battery closing apps than leaving them open.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
That is very funny, because logically you're like, oh, running in the background means it's running, so it's using energy. Use energy as battery. Only have a limited amount of battery. It's completely logical to think that, but at least on iOS that is not the case. Which is
it would
blew me away.
Actually make sense, right? Like because they would know that people don't. You know, the majority of smartphone users or even Apple users, doesn't matter, Android, whatever, they're not tech savvy to the point where they understand what a process is, like a Windows taskbar of like looking at what processes are taking up the amount of RAM and CPU usage, and they don't need to know any of that.
And they don't care either.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and then it's like, well, if that's what it is, then instead of like what we do is like if we touch our parents' phone and we like, well, you got all this crap open.
I'm like ding, 50, ding, 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 ding,
50
ding, ding,
things
ding.
open, like ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
Actually, when I do like my parents, because it's like they've got like 50 things, and I do the close all button, because at that point it's like I'm not going to be swiping 50 times. But
they've got a year's worth of apps open.
If they know that that's what's happening, then you would ensure that they're fully suspended. So otherwise, like everybody's phone would last, like, that isn't doing what we do, then, their phone wouldn't last a half a day.
Yeah. Yeah, you're totally right. I suppose they're smart enough to recognize that the average user probably isn't closing their apps. Or maybe it's a generational thing. Maybe it's like, I don't know, but you're much older than me and I still do it. Maybe, I don't know. Why do we do it?
I think it's like
why do we do it?
I think it's like a tech savvy thing. Like if you live and breathe the stuff like we do, then we all know we know about performance and eking performance, and we know that having 50,000 tabs open in Chrome is just asking for your RAM to be and your system to just crawl. We're not going to fire up Cyberpunk 2077 with 50 Chrome windows open in the background. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly
we will
right.
close all the windows before we do that. But whereas somebody who just buys a gaming PC, doesn't know anything about it, has 50 windows open, and fires up a game, they're not thinking the way we do.
Yeah.
And I think that's more of just like a knowledge thing. Like, doesn't matter how old you are. If you're in tech or you're steeped into the day-to-day like we are, then...
And it turns out having a lack of knowledge in this case helps you.
Yeah.
Like my grandma is using her phone better than me.
Yeah, in this specific case. But I
Yes,
still would
in
argue
this-
that's not using the phone greatly. I haven't that many things. I would, even knowing this, I would still close. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still doing this. I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
So this is what iOS chief Craig Federighi said to 9 to 5 Mac. He was asked if closing apps save battery, to which he said, "quote no and no." So even closing them doesn't save battery. Now he didn't say anything about closing them actually uses more battery, but closing them that is open and shut. There is
it has to like close the process. It has to do something, so it would use more battery.
To. Yeah.
If it's sitting idle.
Yeah, logically, it would use more battery. If
let's say your PC was like in, it's almost the equivalent would be like if your PC is like in sleep mode, right? And then you come up and you realize that it went to sleep with like a browser window open, and then you like wake it from sleep, close the browser window, and then let it go back to sleep, thinking like that actually saved you anything. You know what I mean? Because that doesn't, like, you've just turned on your PC again. I
don't understand what you're saying. Wait, it goes against all of my.
But that's what we're doing, right? Because if the apps are asleep and we're waking them up to close them, it's like we're turning on a PC to do something to turn it off. You know what I mean? You're just wasting energy for nothing.
I'm starting to really not like this. I think it's.
I think it should. I think the apps should be using up battery, and the more you have open,
I agree.
The more battery ends up being used, so then you get punished for not knowing how to close.
Yes. So now my phone would get much better battery, or I just wouldn't feel like an idiot now.
Yeah.
Because then everyone would have to close their apps. Yeah. I'll be like, yeah, I've been doing that. I've been doing it.
Why don't my phone doesn't last an hour? I'm like, well, let me take a guess, pal.
Because you got 50 apps open.
Exactly.
No, but I just thought that story blew me away when I came across that. I was like, wait a second, you're kidding me. You're joking. But I looked into it and I got multiple sources for it. It's real. Even on Apple's website. What?
Yeah. Like it says in a piece, like it's only recommended if your app is frozen, then you close it. Or it's not responding.
All right, let's jump to something a bit more fun and that doesn't make me feel like an idiot. The world's first robot dog with a flamethrower is now available to buy. Yeah, we can buy. Yeah. Let's put out a call to get one of these robots, Kosta.
To review, right?
Let's review it.
Oh wait, but it's designed for wildfire control and prevention, snow and ice removal, but entertainment and SFX. That's what we would use it for. Entertainment.
100% entertainment. Now, look, this isn't going to be used as a weapon at all. It's not. I don't think it will be.
Detecting sarcasm.
No, not something that's called the Terminator.
Actually, didn't even see that. I just saw robot
It's
dog
called
with a
the
flamethrower.
Terminator.
The Terminator.
Regardless, look, I'm pretty sure the company behind this.
Is he just pouring petrol into it?
Yeah, I mean, of course, yeah, it needs petrol. Yeah,
but it's like one of those Boston Dynamics. Like the way it moves is like one of those robot dogs.
Yeah, well, it is built on the same kind of, I'm guessing, like exoskeleton. It's called the Unitree Go 2 quadruped. It's akin to the iconic robot dog called Spot, and I'm pretty sure...
Except with a flamethrower.
Yeah, it does have a flamethrower, yes. Of course it has a flamethrower. It's called Terminator. Except it's smaller and lighter. Yeah, so Boston Dynamics requires its buyers of the exoskeleton to not turn their robot dog design into a weapon. So that's why the Terminator is designed for wildfire control and prevention, snow and ice removal, and entertainment and sound effects.
Yeah, so what are you going to do? It's like, actually, this would be kind of cool. Like, you know, if you're living in one of those American cities where you need to like clear the snow from your driveway, just send out the Terminator. Imagine that. Like, imagine when your neighbors did that. Like, what the hell?
You're
Come
just
over
on the
here.
porch. You're just on the porch, just with a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
You're like, just open up the paper. You just look across the street, and you just see this robot dog just like down, and then just do a 180, turn, face the house, and just blast flame all over the driveway. You're like,
Exactly.
what the? But this is what it's for. So let's go into a little bit of its specs here. So it's equipped with LiDAR sensors for navigation. So it shoots lasers out of its face.
Yeah, I was about to
bounces,
say, like, what the lasers...
bounces those lasers off of surfaces and then receives
detect
the signal back.
How far you need to throw the flame.
Yep, essentially. It has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connectivity, thank God. Smartphone remote control, you can control it with an app. Has first person navigation through an onboard camera system. It weighs 37 pounds and is the following dimensions: 30 inches by 20 inches by 20 inches.
I think
and it has
reach out
what
to
was
these
that,
people. You just need to reach out to them and just say, hey, we'd like to test one.
Are we actually, imagine if we got the flame bot, dude.
I don't think they would even allow it through Australian customs.
It has a flamethrower.
30 feet for 45 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, it won't hurt sending an email.
And you're just controlling it with your phone. You can shoot a flame for like 30 feet, for just like sustain it for 45 minutes. Like, how is this not the... This should be illegal.
It's called it's called the Terminator, dude. It's for ice driveways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
okay.
They're just making shit up at this point, right? Like, if you say wildfire control and prevention, which means you're going to use it to do controlled burning, which you don't.
Maybe
need.
we take it to
They're trying
like
to make
some
up. There's no purpose.
fire department.
Yeah, like back burning, or like in Australia, obviously, because bushfires and stuff, you do back burning to prevent.
That's how we get a sample. We go back burning
no.
for a day with the flame bot.
I don't want to start the next major disaster.
No,
snow and ice removal. They're just making things up, and then entertainment and special effects. What are we gonna do?
It's for movies. It's like the new Michael Bay film. He'll have like 4 or 5 of these, and then Bumblebee or something will come through the shot. It'll be nuts. So, it's equipped with an ARC flamethrower with a built-in fuel tank that can be filled with gasoline or a gasoline/diesel mixture. So,
for all our listeners in the US, free US shipping.
So
it's
the
ready
dog
for
is,
anything, according to the website. Ecological conservation. That's what it's ready for. Agricultural management.
It's called the Terminator.
What is... Oh, my God. It is like... It's so cool that I want one, but it's also... So
it
dangerous
would
that
be
it
the
shouldn't
most
exist.
unnecessary thing that I've ever purchased. It is $9,420. Blaze it. That is like it's called the Terminator. $9,420. It can shoot a stream of fire 30 feet for 45 minutes. That's kind of impressive.
It is impressive.
It's not that big. Like I don't think it would be as big as what the video is showing, but that cannon thing that it has on its back, that can shoot. Oh, I can see where the tank is at the back there near its hind legs. Like that, you fill that up. I don't reckon it'd be more than what, 3 liters?
Not even. It doesn't. I don't even think so. Like, I think that's like a liter and a half or something.
So that's and then look, it's you kind of get like a Steam Deck with it. You can get a phone attachment, dude.
Oh yeah, with the controllers. Oh, you can control it with your backbone or Razer key thing. Dual analog controls.
So what do you think? Company.
I think we try and get one. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, you sold me. Like, yeah, I want one. Sure, I want to.
It can also jump in the air and shoot flame at the same time. What do you think of that?
That's even better. Yes. Let's do it.
Don't you just want one
You
more
can
now?
jump in- oh yeah, look at the screenshot. Looks like it's got some serious height too. That's pretty funny. Like what practical purpose has like a quadruped robot dog like jumping with a flamethrower? Like,
Because why not, dude? Why not? I don't know. It just makes me happy that this exists and it's a thing, and you can buy one now.
yeah, free shipping in the US.
Yeah, free shipping. Yeah, very cool. We should get to something a tad more serious. As fun as that was, you should talk to me about the Intel controversy.
Oh yeah, this has been going on and off for a little while. So I'm not the foremost expert on CPUs, but like to give a basic idea, with the flagship 13th and 14th gen Raptor Lake Core i9 desktop CPUs. So you're talking like the 13900K and the 14900K.
Hmm.
So these processors are powerful, right? But what's happened on the Intel side is that these things can draw like hundreds of watts. You know, like a 1400KS can like push to like I think even 400 watts or something like that for like a 320 watts for a CPU. That's
Wow.
like that's more than a 3080.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like CPUs were never something that you'd expect to be drawing this much power. And so for the last couple of months, certain owners of like flagship Intel CPUs have been noticing, especially when gaming.
I did a story on this.
Yeah, that's right. Everybody has. Like you've done one, Anthony's done one, I've done one, and then like Darren's done one.
This has been happening for a while.
Yeah, it's been happening for a while. Yeah, so like things have been crashing, right?
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, so basically, yeah, so people have been like, crashing games, et cetera, et cetera. Then Nvidia came out and said, it's not our problem. Like, people like saying like, why are the game's crashing? This is, check Intel. And so basically what's happened is that, these processors and motherboards like have the chipsets for like the Intel motherboards have like current excursion protection, which is like voltage thingo. Velocity boost, voltage boosts, and all these little things in terms of voltage control to maintain maximum performance. And the only reason I think people are maintaining these maximum performance, or even like Intel allows it, is so they could like take the crown for like benchmarks, right? If you're releasing your flagship CPU and it's going to be the most powerful CPU on the planet, but in order to achieve that, it's running at overclocked. It's 6+ gigahertz and it's drawing 300 watts.
That's crazy.
So basically, the motherboards are disabling all these things, or like checks for that to happen, right? And apparently, what's happening is that Intel hasn't even given these motherboard makers to say, no, don't do that. It's just like, whatever, that's what happens. And that's what's been happening for a while with Intel boards. But now because they're drawing so much power is that they're now not stable. And the quality of motherboards varies from board maker to board maker. Some motherboards aren't meant to be running the flagship GPUs at 300 plus watts. The VRMs and all how they handle voltage just can't really, isn't designed for that. And so then what happened is that there was a statement issued to the motherboard makers that basically blamed them in a way. Like it's saying, Intel, it's like, no, you should be doing this. You should be using our recommended settings. And what's been happening before this, Eagles Lab kind of leaked this statement or had got a copy of it, like an internal memo or whatever it is, Intel communicating to board makers like Gigabyte and Asus and MSI, et cetera, people that make Intel boards. And so there's going to be like an update to the story today where basically Intel has come out and said that we're not shifting the blame. We're still investigating the issue. We don't really know what the root cause problem is, and people just are taking a wild stab that unmitigated voltage, high levels of power is probably what's causing it.
Yeah, well, no shit.
But they've introduced all these recommended settings, and the thing is, like everybody's come out. Like Asus introduced like a BIOS update a week or so ago before this to introduce like new safeguards or like to re-enable thingos. And then Hardware Unboxed, which is a YouTube channel, quite prominent in terms of when they go into detail on certain things. They did some of their own investigation or did some of their own benchmarks and showed that if you do turn on all of this stuff that Intel is recommending, it actually it noticeably impacts performance. So, the conclusion is that, like, to hit this performance target that they're saying the CPU can achieve, you need to basically run it on basically with no rules in place or no checks in place, or like, these motherboards just allow anything to happen, like, whatever voltage, etc., etc. And a lot of these motherboards can't actually handle it, and that was their conclusion, is that there's different.
So you're in danger if you run Intel settings. You're endangering your other components.
Oh, well, if you're allowing these CPUs to run without
unchecked.
the new settings in, or like the new ones that they're going to roll out or whatever, that it could, well, like it's instant. So far, all we know is that it's causing crashes and systems to be unstable. So like they haven't.
I don't think that's very good for the system.
No, I don't think I've heard. There's no issues of like the system's like overheating, melting, or anything like that. But yeah, like, so this is like an ongoing controversy. Apparently, they're going to release a statement next month, or like an official statement or something like that.
Next month?
Because they're apparently still investigating what's causing it exactly. But
so now they're still. So now, okay. So just a quick summary of it. So new Intel CPUs, high-end CPUs, were found to be running at 300 watts something. So then. I'm just looked at my story.
The new flagship
motherboard
one, the
manufacturers recommended. Was it motherboard manufacturers? Well, multiple publications recommended limiting the amount of voltage, limiting clock speeds, and all of that, so they don't hit this insane wattage.
Yep.
Now, then motherboard manufacturers rolled out a BIOS update to essentially limit the voltage and wattage,
and which impacts performance, right? Yeah. So like,
which is now reducing the performance of the CPU below what Intel has marketed them at. Am I correct in saying that?
Well, the performance, yeah. So so the word is called, it's like extreme power delivery is what they called it. They introduced it with the 13th gen, and so where the peak power draw is increased, and this is like one of the things that. Some people have been complaining about, like if you look at like a Ryzen, the flagship Ryzen CPU, and it's like, sure, like this 320 watt Intel CPU can get a higher Cinebench score than the Ryzen, 7950X3D or whatever, running at 165 or 170 watts. But it's using double the power. So, but if you run them at equivalent wattage, then the Ryzen is more efficient. Which is why, like in the mobile space, the Ryzen, like the Ryzen socks are taking off quite, like the 7040 series and the 8040, the Phoenix points and all those, like, CPU and GPU combos, is because they're just more efficient at lower power. Whereas Intel's is like gone for like brute force.
Yeah.
With the latest generations. And it seems like their flagships are just drawing so much power that they're causing instability issues. Because the thing is as well, like Intel is still investigating it, but like from what publications like Tom's Hardware Unbox, like I mentioned, and like Igor's Lab as well. These are like hardcore tech outlets that the people that are writing about it are the ones that are reviewing the CPUs in detail as well. So and motherboards as well. So like their conclusion is that it's because of the amount of power. And the thing is as well, like we don't from what I can see, it's just the 13900Ks and the 14900Ks, like the flagship ones that draw all this power. They have the most cores. They can push past 6 gigahertz. They can push past 300 watts. It's not affecting the 14700Ks or the 14600Ks, the
lower wattage
watt or the 120
CPUs.
Watt, whatever they are, CPUs, like the mid-range CPUs. It's just the high-end one. So it has to do something with Intel's extreme power delivery and
it must be tripping a motherboard.
Yeah, because all these things are being disabled.
Safeguard of some kind.
Yeah, there's certain things being disabled when it's just allowing voltage to go through. And I think Hardware Unboxes, some of their conclusions were that was basically a lot of these motherboards like shouldn't even be allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Because like, there's a difference between like a high-end
Oh,
Asus
absolutely.
AM5 board versus the entry-level Asus board or the MSI entry-level Asus board versus the high-end one. It isn't just because they got Thunderbolt 4 or 3 more USB ports.
Yeah,
It's the VRM, it's the voltage
and
control.
I won't pretend to know anything about motherboards, but I know enough to get by in purchasing one.
Like,
where
that,
I know,
like
if I'm running, I know just a simple rule of thumb is if I'm running expensive components, like say a 4090 or something like that, or another high-end CPU, I need to get a high-end motherboard to match those components. Yes. I'm not going to put those expensive components in a $90 motherboard because the capacitors, the VRMs, or all of the components on that board,
all that sort of stuff,
are all lower quality. And I don't want to risk, not that I don't think it will happen in this day and age, but I'm not even going to put give it a chance of happening, is if something does happen and it short circuits, I want my components to be as protected as possible. So that's a good rule of thumb, I think.
Yeah, so Intel kind of like threw motherboard makers under the bus, but their new statement says like, we're not blaming motherboard makers, we're just introducing new, Intel's baseline profile. So then like the out of the box profile, the default BIOS profile will have all of these things in check. And you would have to probably go into the BIOS now to manually disable and go past like a warning. If you do this, your system might be unstable, blah, blah, blah. Are you sure you want to disable? You know what I mean? Like, so there'll be new checks in place or however it's going to work. But yeah, so like it's like you said, like we've been seeing this crop up for like months, like a few months now, like people reporting instability. So it seems that there's like something going on with the Intel high-end CPUs, and it seems to be power related, and how basically any motherboard is allowing a lot of power to run through the CPU without any sort of like of the actual security measures or like the voltage, like throttles and checks in place are just all being disabled.
In the same vein as this, but this is something that just really bothers me about PC hardware stuff, is when you buy RAM and on the box it says, let's just say it says 4000 megahertz or whatever.
Yeah.
Then you put it in your system, you boot it up, you've got it in the right slots, everything, and then you go to your Windows and you go to see the megahertz running, and it's 233, the base clock speed. But on the box,
that's what annoys me as well, because it's all based on like overclocking the timings and stuff. Like RAM is
absolute.
Like, the most
I
confusing.
hate that. I find that so shady. And I can't believe that they can get away with that, because there is, I would say, millions of gamers out there that would buy that RAM. They're not tech savvy. They go, awesome, I'm going to get 4000 megahertz. Everything's going to feel better. They finally figure out how to get it into their computer, into the right channels. Everything's looking good. They boot it up. Yes, got into Windows, and then they just go out playing their games, and they're playing at 2333.
Yeah, you have to go into your BIOS to enable the XMP.
XMP profile.
If you're on Ryzen.
What?
Yeah.
Why? Turn it on, dog.
Because it's overclocking, yeah. But the thing is, it's only like I get like why it exists, but it's so confusing, and it shouldn't be so like hidden behind.
It should be marketed like that. If it can, like, it should be like base clock speed, front and center. This is what you're going to get. However, I don't know how they're going to put this on the very nice packaging, but like can be overclocked to 4000. It shouldn't be like RAM, its name, and then 4000 megahertz on the bottom, and then everyone thinks that they're getting. I just think that's the most egregious form of,
because that's like the overclock speed that you can get.
Very, very annoying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we'll keep our eyes on this Intel thing, because that's quite interesting, and it really does sound like wattage is the main problem here.
Yeah, definitely. I'll switch to AMD now, because we did Intel. So this one is like relatively new. I'm going to post a story on it. So we've talked about this leaker on X, Kepler,
Oh, yeah.
and L2, where he like posts. He has like insider info. He's like a known leaker. He knows what's going on with GeForce and Radeon, and he doesn't tease information unless he knows something
He's
specifically,
renowned.
or he's seen something like hands on, or he
Yeah.
has direct access to it. So basically, he tweeted a cryptic message like basically 12 hours ago. It was basically Fry from Futurama squinting his eyes, and people were like, "Oh, what are you talking about?"
Oh,
And then
yeah.
he posted after that like RT or ray tracing looks brand new. That's all he posted, and people saying, "Are you talking about next gen Radeon?" And he's like, "Yes." Where RDNA 3 was basically the RDNA 2. So the Radeon introduced hardware ray tracing a generation after NVIDIA. It was not
Mm-hmm.
as good. So what they did was they added like an RT accelerator in each compute unit with the 6000 series, which covers like the 6800 XT,
Yeah.
which was like the 3080 equivalent. And RDNA 3, which is the current generation, the 7000 series, is basically was the same thing, but with just some minor improvements or tweaks to improve performance. And there was some the performance increases you only really see on the high end because you got more compute units. So it wasn't really a game changer. Whereas now, this leaker Kepler, he's basically saying that RDNA 4, which we know is not going to have a flagship GPU,
Yep. That's
um,
right. Yep.
is actually a completely different, brand new RT system. And what we've heard about PlayStation 5 Pro, this will lead into your PlayStation story, which was one of the big selling points with the PS5 Pro, which is launching at the end of the year. It's all, there's been so many leaks that we're just waiting for Sony to confirm it at this point, right? Is it saying Sony just to come out and say, yes, it's all true.
Yes, they should.
The
They should
legends are
do
true. But what we've seen from those leaks is that ray tracing performance is going to be 2 to 3 times faster.
that.
And we've kind of like discussed, like some of that will be based on their own AI upscaling or whatever they're going to be doing AI wise. But some of that would have to be related to with a GPU that they're doing something different. And what we've heard from leaks is that people have been rumoring or speculating that they think that PlayStation or Sony is actually using new custom ray tracing hardware from AMD that's RDNA 4 based. And so you combine that with what Kepler's saying here is that RDNA 4 is brand new ray tracing. The way it does ray tracing is brand new hardware. Then it makes a lot more sense, like that they can achieve that the PS5 Pro is going to be a much better ray tracing console than the PS5 ever was or ever could be because it's running like this new hardware. And this also means that even though Radeon or the RDNA 4 is not going to have a flagship GPU, it means that they could potentially have a really good ray tracing
Yeah,
GPU
just to cut down.
that's been like their Achilles heel for a while.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so like even at the mid range, like their mid range hasn't been good for ray tracing because it's just not at the level of Nvidia, right? So if this is like better than the 40 series or the 4070 at that sort of equivalent at ray tracing, then it's going to be impressive.
It will be.
So then it puts a bit more pressure on Nvidia to dramatically improve their ray tracing because their ray tracing performance has kind of just been on this step ladder sort of thing with like the 20 series and then the 30 series and now the 40 series. It's like it's getting better and like by enough of a percentage that like it's like, oh, this is now a lot better. But it's, they haven't had a moment where it's like, oh, this is like now triple the performance of ray tracing or double the performance of ray tracing.
Maybe it's because they're consistently climbing.
Yes, that's right. They're consistent. Whereas, I mean, like AMD kind of needed this to like push their ray tracing. They can't just do an incremental upgrade. So this is actually good news. And Kepler, like I trust them, their previous info, or like the last, however X amount of things that they've been saying have come out to be true. So
yeah, they're pretty on the money.
Yeah, so this is a cool story that kind of like just dropped today. But yeah, it's a small story. But yeah, so like Radeon graphics is ray tracing is actually looks like it's going to improve dramatically, and that's going to affect the 8000 series of GPUs. And it's most likely, or has a very good chance to find its way into the PS5 Pro.
That would be awesome. Well, we can go straight into the PS5 Pro story then.
Yep.
So, Digital Foundry is a YouTube channel that we've talked about quite a lot on the podcast previously. They are the gold standard for all things gaming and hardware related with gaming. And they've once again taken a look at the PS5 Pro.
Yep.
And just touching on the GPU side of things, be about a 45% increase in GPU performance compared to the standard PS5. And that would make a lot more sense if there was a new RDNA 4
That's
piece
actually
of
pretty
hardware.
good, right? Because that's like going from like 3080 to 4080.
That's a lot.
You know what I mean? Or like 2080 to 3080. It's like a GPU generation.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good.
Yeah. No, it is. It's very good. Yeah, what was on the lesser side was the CPU, because that was it's still going to be Zen 2, right?
Yeah, that's I mean, like the problem with that is that you can't really change the CPU because the CPU drives a lot of, like, you know, like it's obviously the way that the system works in a way. It's very CPU dependent, and so like if you change the CPU dramatically, then you're essentially got a brand new console.
Yeah,
whereas what they're doing is that they're throwing more GPU hardware. Like for example, like if you go from like a Ryzen, like a Zen 2 to a Zen 4 CPU on your PC, you can't just take the CPU out, put the new one in. You have to swap your motherboard and you have to swap your RAM. It's a whole new chipset. It's a whole new architecture. But if you take that same PC and you wanted a new GPU, you could just take the GPU out, plop a GPU in, a new one in.
That is a very good analogy.
Like so it's like beefing up a GPU is basically all you can really do with a Pro console.
Yeah, that makes sense. And also whack in PSSR as well, which is going to be a big component of the PS5 Pro.
PSSR,
so,
do you think that's what they're going to call it?
PSSR?
Yeah. I mean, it's just a funny acronym. It's like kind of USSR.
Oh, okay. Now it's getting. Oh, yeah.
I just think of like Street Fighter 2, like when you go to fight Zangief, and it's like USSR.
Maybe they should just call it Spectral Super Resolution.
PlayStation Spectral or something like that.
Spectral Super Resolution.
Yeah, SSR.
Yeah, maybe that works better. So Digital Foundry explains that the PS5 Pro will come with Spectral Super Resolution, which is, for those that don't know, Sony's new upscaling technology, and another mode called Ultra Boost mode. And this mode is designed to help games using variable refresh rate. It'll give them more frames as well. So Digital Foundry dives in and says that games that are using AMD's FSR2 will likely benefit from a lot from the PS5 Pro hardware, which would be titles such as Star Wars Jedi Survivor, Avatar, Frontiers of Pandora, Final Fantasy 7, is that 7? Rebirth, and Final Fantasy 8? No, that's 9.
7 Rebirth and 16.
16, sorry.
Yep.
16.
At that point, like Roman numerals become very, very confusing.
Yeah, I know.
Once you get past 10.
So I'm guessing, and this might tie into the story that you were talking about, the purported RDNA 4 hardware inside of the PS5 Pro, and at least the 45% GPU increase in performance, along with the Spectral Super Resolution, is going to help VRR based games, particularly.
Definitely. Well, the extra GPU performance right off the bat, because like the way VRR works is that the refresh rate just changes just based on how fast the game is running, right? And then if your VRR capable TV can handle it, then like as long as it's running anywhere between 40 to 60 FPS, it still feels like 60. You don't really notice it because the refresh rate is adjusting on the fly.
Yeah.
But also it's like dynamic resolution, which they mention as well. So it's like like if a game is like running at 30 FPS or even 60 FPS, whatever it is, right? And if it's 60 FPS 4K, and in order to maintain, like at maximum, it's going to be rendering at 4K. But to maintain that performance, it just drops the vertical or horizontal resolution to maintain that performance. And that's all just GPU dependent. So like if a game is running at 60, but for half the time it's running below 1440p or even dropping down to 1080p to maintain that 60 FPS, with that extra 40% or the beefier GPU, it'll just be like close to 4K. It'll just stay locked at where it's maximum. It won't be dropping the resolution. The dynamic resolution won't be kicking in as often. It won't be as dramatic, and then the image quality will just
Maintain
better.
and stay consistent.
Yep.
Yeah, which is great. So we can expect, and this is pardon me. This is kind of what we were talking about when I wrote up that article about the big problem that Sony has for the PS5 Pro, and that there's going to be no big first-party game to release it with. Well, I think we predicted in that article that Sony was going to go back through all of its first-party titles that it sold with the PS5.
They'll have to have some enhanced games. Yeah,
they will enhance them all, and a lot of them are used. I'm guessing are VRR as well dependent. Yep. So these games like God of War Ragnarok, Insomniac Spider-Man 2, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, The Last of Us.
I think their own games that they might go like a little bit all out. Like if we're talking about like extra GPU, like I think they'll try and
we shouldn't expect big performance.
Yeah, like, but I think that they'll like see the other side to like the PS5 Pro was that like a lot of the leaks are saying like this is Sony like really digging into ray tracing. So I think they're going to like for example like Ratchet and Clank, which has ray tracing on the PS5, and then they released like a performance mode for it, but you can tell it's running in a lower resolution, and the reflection quality is not as good as the PC version because the PC version is optimized for NVIDIA GPUs and DLSS. So they could say, look, hey, look, that's still one of the best looking games ever made. Like I don't like it's stunning on PS5, it's stunning on PC.
It is great.
If you give it a chance, like you probably will enjoy it if you like third person action games, like a little bit of shooting, a little bit of platforming.
Yeah, I love Ratchet and Clank series.
Yeah. So it's a really good game once you get into it. But let's say they took that and they did the enhanced mode. Like if they all they did was just make sure that it runs at 60 at the exact same settings, then I don't think that's exciting. I think if they just showed like this is what Ratchet and Clank looks like on, because that has so many sequences that are just, which can show off what ray tracing can do, reflections.
It's a very vibrant game.
Shadows and stuff like that. Exactly, yeah. So they could say like, here's it running on PS5, okay, and then here's it's running on PS5 Pro, and then let's say they do some sort of like ray traced global illumination or stuff from the PC version, and you're like, whoa, that looks way better. Like, and then that's the PS5 Pro enhanced model. Like that's what they need to do. They need to. I think personally, like that's what we're getting at, is that like they need to have a game that takes advantage of. I think they need to take one of the like 1, 2, 3, 4, or even half a dozen, whatever it is. Like take existing first party titles and make them like
look stunning,
souped up PC versions running on your new hardware that has apparently that can push ray tracing performance even higher, and then you've got your upscaling to maintain visual fidelity because you're not because it sounds like they're not too happy with FSR upscaling because not many developers are using it on console.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's interesting. I think we're heading towards hitting the nail on the head with our predictions for the PS5 Pro.
Yeah.
Like as more reports come out, it seems at this point the whole damn console has been leaked. So it's I suppose kind of easy for us to predict it.
It'll be black. I think that's my prediction as well. It'll be black.
You think it'll be black? Oh, that's a good. Ooh. What if they go silver again, like the PS2?
Silver.
Remember the old PS2?
Yeah, but like nobody's releasing like silver or like chrome.
No, I know, but
anymore. But they could bring it back.
There.
Bring back chrome colored gear.
It needs to look like
It needs obviously it's going to look different. I'm just saying black because it's the polar opposite of the white one of the existing PS5.
picture the first PS3, like the chunky, shiny plastic
the George
one that had
Foreman grill.
Yeah. The one that had the PlayStation 3 right across the top, but in a almost metallic silver. What do we think of that?
I think that's interesting. Yeah.
I don't know. They're not going to do that.
I think
It's
that's
so
probably
left
the only
field.
two options you could go is like silver, chrome, or black for the PS5 Pro.
Yeah. Yeah, they won't do like... What if they did like a PlayStation Blue one?
I was about to say like, what if they did?
That would be insane.
Would that would look so bizarre though.
It would look insane. Just sitting
Like
next
just
to your
having it on
TV.
the shelf there.
This like navy blue console.
I don't think you could do it.
Nah. I think
I mean,
it'll
the
be white
PS5
again.
you can swap out the face plates as it is, so you can make your PS5 black if you want. They got those skins and whatever. You can swap them out the plates and change it. But I think like maybe they make it like a brushed metal black though.
That
So it's
would
not
be
just
nice.
the plastic of the thingo. So it's like an aluminum or whatever. It's like a brushed metal,
Yeah.
like black PS5 Pro. There it is.
I love me some black. I love some black. I love me some brush metal.
Yeah.
I think this keyboard's brush metal. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. The top frame of that would be it's the G915. Yeah, that's a really good finish.
I love. Oh, you probably can't see that. Reese, zoom in. Anyway, you get it. If they did a silver or a black version of that, that would be nice. Or what? I reckon it'll be white, and I think it's going to be. I think it's going to come with some more LED lights. Like they're going to put some more. You know, bit of razzle dazzle on it.
Bit of razzle dazzle. It would just be
and
blue.
I'm gonna be like, why? But you know, I'm here for it because I'm probably gonna
put
buy
a little LCD screen on
it. What for?
Well, then you want the razzle dazzle.
Yeah, I would look if they put an LCD screen on it. I would just want all my performance metrics on it.
Yeah, but then,
I would want to know how hot it's running. I want to see the
little,
CPU load. I want to see the GPU. I want to see the ray tracing performance. I want to see it all.
They do like little widgets for like the game that you're playing, you know, whatever, or you know, like if it's a first Spider-Man game, it'll just be like Spider-Man. You know, could be like a cool little gimmick.
That would be it would be a cool little gimmick. Speaking of cool little gimmicks that you know, we can't do anymore. Valve has patched probably the most abused loophole, I would say, in its entire service. And this is something, I'll be honest right off the bat, I've done this so many times. It is, look, I don't hate the player, hate the game. That's what I think. I've bought games, tried it out for an hour and a half, just refunded it straight away because it just wasn't for me. But I was interested in giving it a shot. Look, if they had a demo option for me to download, I would have done that.
Yep.
But those games didn't. So I did what every other gamer would do. I don't like this and I want my money back.
So what's the change? Is that like you can't refund if you've played it under 2 hours anymore?
No, they've kind of fixed it, but not entirely. So what was happening was gamers were downloading or buying games with advanced access, and then they were playing those games. However, the 2 hours didn't count towards their playtime in the advanced access period. It would only start after the game officially launched.
Oh, right. Well, that's definitely a loophole.
Yeah, so gamers were buying games like with advanced access, you know, open, well, not open beta. It would be any form of advanced access, like pre-purchasing a title, getting it a week early, getting it 2 days early, getting it whatever.
Or even like
they were playing it during that time,
and then just getting a refund.
No lifing their games during that time because they knew when the game went to official launch and it was going to hit release date, they were just going to refund it that day within the 2 hour period. Now you can't do that anymore. Steam has changed it. Now, the hours played in advanced access titles or any other pre-purchased content counts towards the total 2-hour period. Now, you can still do just the buy it, download it, play it for an hour 40, 45 minutes and refund it, but you can't sit in there for like if the game is in advanced access for like a week, 2 weeks, I think you can't.
The only reason they even have that policy is because of the Australian government. Because like Valve hates Australia, like because of our government forced them to actually offer refunds and stuff.
Really?
Because Australian consumer law is like pretty strict, right? Like if, let's say you like our laws are actually pretty quite good. Like if when you buy something here, or it's like, oh, you got in America, or like you got 3 years warranty, and that's like, oh, that's nice, but like that's standard here. Like you have to have that. Like if you buy like a whatever it is, in 12-month warranty, whatever it's like, white goods or electrical and stuff like that, you have to be able to. People have to be able to, like, if it's faulty within X amount of time, get a refund. Like they're eligible for it. And it's the same with games, like a purchase of a game. Like if for some reason they don't like it or want it anymore, you have to give a refund. Like that's just our law.
Wow.
There's obviously within limits, so that's how they came up with like you can actually refund a game on Steam. Steam at some point didn't offer any refunds at all until they were taken to court.
I can't even remember that. How long ago was that?
Over a decade, they were taken to court.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and I think to this day, I think that's the reason why the Steam Deck isn't officially available in Australia.
Oh really?
Mm-hmm. It's why the Valve Index took like 2 or 3 years to make its way to Australia. I think this is a grudge that between like Valve and like Australian like laws and consumer.
That's very funny if that's the case. They're like, we're not going to release our product in your country.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's petty, but like it's
and the Australian government's like, all right, mate, no worries.
Keeping it on the Steam bandwagon, have you heard about Garry's mod?
No.
And what happened to them? So Garry's mod is one of the oldest mods on Steam, right? So Garry's mod basically took the Half-Life or the Source engine and created like a sandbox, like a physics sandbox for Half-Life 2. And it was like a mod for Half-Life 2 that is now published by Valve on Steam. It's like one of the biggest sellers, and the developer has gone on to make games like Rust and all these other thingos. So this dates back 20 years. That's how old this Garry's mod is. But it's like one of the most popular games of like from the early days of Steam. We're talking like when Steam launched with Half-Life 2 in like 2005 and 6, so like 20 years almost. So basically what's happened is that somebody at Nintendo has either just realized that Garry's mod has been a thing for 20 years or I don't know what's happened. Because they sent like it's so random that like initially people thought this was a hoax and people are still convinced that it's a hoax, but Garry's mod creators have said like, no, this is real. So they received DCMA, the copyright takedown request from Nintendo saying you have to take down any content that is related to our IP. Now, Garry's mod is an open tool, right? So it's a physics sandbox where people can create their own fun little things, like for using Half-Life 2's, physics and stuff like that, the Source engine. And so this means that people can just create their own stuff and upload it, and you can download it. So if you're on Garry's mod, you have access to basically like a sea of mods and updates and skins and stuff like that. And a lot of these are Nintendo related, as to be expected, when you can upload your own stuff. So Garry's mod, which is named after the head of the studio, Garry Newman, has said that yes, they're legit, and that now they have to go through 20 years of uploads to remove anything that's related to Nintendo.
Oh my god!
And
how are they possibly going to be able to do that?
Well, they said it's going to take time, and they've posted a community on Steam. They say this has come from Nintendo. This is serious. They verified it. And so they're asking users who have uploaded Nintendo related stuff to delete it themselves, which would help them out a lot, because then that's like one less thing to go through.
Do you think that's going to work?
Like, how do you go through it, right? It's not just like the description of the mod. They have to download and check every community creation to see if it's got anything, if any sort of Nintendo IP in it.
Yeah, it's not like all of the files are named Nintendo.
You got thousands of things to go through, hundreds of thousands,
millions probably.
It's
My
crazy.
God.
But it's just
so
it's like
what
20
did
years.
Someone at Nintendo just realize that this game exists?
How
does that even work?
Yeah.
That way they came across Garry's mod and saw like a Mario mushroom and they're like, what? Hold on.
Yeah, like I don't know. Like
What's this
this
game?
has been around for, like some of these have been there for like.
It's in yellow box, isn't it? In the orange box.
Well, Garry's mod, yeah, on the PC, like was on Steam for around
Wasn't
about that time.
Wasn't it part of the orange box?
It's not a part of the orange box because the orange box I think was more of a console thing, but it was basically around that same time. Yeah, that's when it came out. 2006. Yeah, so orange box era. Or even before Orange Box, yeah. I don't know. Like it's decades worth of stuff they have to go through. It's weird because Nintendo just it's like why now, but also then like that caused people to say that like nah, this is some sort of troll trying to troll you guys to take all this stuff down. It's like a fake that like and there's the people like on Reddit people are convinced that this is not real. Like they're just trolling the like they're just being scammed to go through this process. But that's not the case. So like Garry Newman, the head of the studio, he basically said no, it's been verified with Nintendo that this takedown request is real, so we have to treat it seriously and go through 20 years of content.
Jesus, that's crazy. We're getting a little strapped for time. Did you just want to do a couple more stories and then we'll wrap up?
Yeah.
Have we covered everything that we did in the intro?
There's just one about like game revenue tanking.
Oh yeah, that's about it. Yep.
So
Okay,
Derek
cool.
posted the story last week. They basically said that because Xbox released like their hardware figures and that revenues are down. Actually no, like revenues are up because of Activision Blizzard, but Xbox hardware revenue, which would be the series consoles and whatever's left of the Xbox One, have decreased 30% year over year. And they decreased last year as well. So like they're on the decline, which is pretty dramatic for Xbox.
Wow.
And they said it's going to decrease again. So it's like crazy. And it's like, wow. So then people were saying like, oh, Xbox is in ruins or blah, 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 or which is, a fair enough conclusion to make. But I've got a story that isn't quite live as we're recording, but will be by the time this episode is live, is that AMD just posted its financial reports for the quarter. And not to go into details, but basically it's that gaming revenue is down 48% year over year for AMD.
What?
And the main reasons is because of a decline in hardware sales, which includes PlayStation and Xbox, as well as Radeon GPUs for PC. So it basically sounds like PlayStation sales could potentially be down as well year over year, but 48%. Now, does this mean like bad news for AMD? No, because data center, which is AI and CPUs for data centers, is up 80% year over year.
Jesus
Client
Christ.
Client revenue is Ryzen processors for laptops and desktop computers is up 85% year over year.
Wow.
And that accounts for over 2/3 of all their revenue. So AMD CEO Lisa Su's statement that opens up their financial report that says that gaming revenue is down basically up to 50% is like, hey, these are strong first quarter results, data center and client segments going crazy. We're going to significantly increase our investment in AI and data centers and blah, blah, blah. And, like it's the gold rush that's where it is. That's where the money is. Like over 2/3 of the money is coming from data centers, AI and Ryzen desktop CPUs. So
why do you think the gaming revenue is down in general? Do you think it's just like tougher? It's harder to live. Inflation's going up.
Yes,
maybe.
there is like luxuries. Like fewer people are spending money on luxuries. I think there's like there's standard things like at this point in the console cycle, sales decline.
Yeah.
Right? And one of the issues with this generation is that the cost of the consoles aren't decreasing. So the way that you increase sales at this point in a console, like if you remember when you were younger and you saw the PS3 or the PS2 when it came out, it was unobtainable. The price was through the roof, and then 2 or 3 years down the track, everybody was getting a PlayStation 2 or a PlayStation 3 because the prices were basically half of what it was when it launched, right? You're talking traditionally consoles would just drop in price by 50%. And now they're basically the same price now than they were at launch. In some markets like Australia, they're actually more expensive now than what they launched with. So you're basically only selling to the same specific target market. You're not selling to families now. You're not broadening the appeal of the console because it's still $800 Australian.
So it's natural for it to go down here.
Yeah.
At this stage.
After 3 or 4 years. So it's natural.
Yeah.
All right. So that's one thing. The second thing is, like you said as well, the global economy and inflation and the cost of living increasing in a lot of places decreases the amount, the luxury. So that factors into it as well. Yeah, and then there's also a third factor that not many people are talking about is that if you look at the youngest generation currently, or the people that are playing games in the youngest generation, they're playing games on tablets and PCs and laptops, and sure, they would like a PlayStation 5, but it's still super expensive. But you know what I mean? Like if you look at the top 10 games, like games that people are playing at that generation are going to be Fortnite, Roblox, Rocket League, Minecraft, Valorant, whatever. Like, you know, these are Counter-Strike as they get into like the tweens and
League
early
of Legends,
teens, whatever. Yeah, League of Legends, Dota, and all these sort of games, right? Each one of those games is almost like a decade old at this point.
Yeah.
Right? So, and they're not playing on closed ecosystem. So then this AMD's gaming revenue specifically covers consoles, which they do custom chips for, like the PlayStation 5 and Xbox. We know Xbox sales are down because Microsoft have told us. So we, if AMD is saying it's down as well, then we can assume that PlayStation is involved in that. Probably not as big of a hit as Xbox because PlayStation is still considerably, there's more units out there. But it also includes Radeon GPUs. Now, if you look at where people are playing games, if they're playing on PCs and laptops, we know that NVIDIA has 80% of the market, or 75 to 80% of that market. So we know Radeon revenue is down as well. And we know that based on the Steam hardware, that the current generation of Radeon cards isn't really making any sort of impact or headway.
Yeah. So it's all kind of pointing towards the same direction. That makes sense.
Yeah, so that's pretty much that. So like, so it'll be interesting to see
after the release of the PS5 Pro,
or even like
happens.
how or just Nvidia's like gaming revenue.
Yeah,
like we know that
Nvidia's
AI revenue is going to be the same sort of situation where it's like
thousands of percent up,
where it's like 100 billion versus 2 billion. You know what I mean? Like we know like the ratio is the same at AMD as well, but like it'd be interesting to see if Nvidia's gaming revenue is either decreasing, stagnating, or staying the same, or actually growing.
I reckon it'd probably be growing.
I think it will be too.
I reckon everything is growing at NVIDIA.
I think it will be too, just because you can actually use their GPUs. Like people are buying 4090s for AI.
Yeah, that's true. They're powerful enough for it. That's about all we've got for this week.
Yep.
Thank you very much for listening, guys. All of the stories that we talked about in this week's episode are in the description below. There is a Google Docs link, and if you click on that, then it'll open up our show notes, and all of the stories will be there for you to enjoy some further reading. Go head over to the YouTube, make sure you subscribe, comment on this video, chuck it a like, and if you just want to listen to the podcast on audio, we are on all audio platforms as well for podcast listening.
And we can be on your Plex server too if you want to download it.
If you want to download it, and you got a Plex server, put us on there, send us a photo, and we'll show it on the podcast.
Or we might not, because we're too scared.
Yeah, or that as well. Do you have anything to sign off with?
No, stay tuned. Next week, I'm sure there's going to be another megaton worth of like gaming hardware related leaks and stuff.
Absolutely. Yep. As always, we will be inundated with news. All right, guys. Thank you very much for listening. Peace.